Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books. Today we're talking about the massive changes at Cartoon Network. This came out really yesterday with the announcement of all the changes, but there was so much going on there was a lot going on. We really didn't get into it. So this video is going to talk about it. It is important. As you know, I do cover a lot of what's going on with Warner Brothers Discovery. This is my 50th video on Warner Brothers Discovery in the last probably 6 weeks or so. All right. Now, the changes are basically this, just to get right to the bottom line. They are taking a lot of authority away from the management at Cartoon Network. They're going to merge Cartoon Network with Warner Brothers Animation. And the purpose of that is to save money, yes. Even more important than save money, to have control over the operation. Because if you've got one management structure rather than two separate management structures, there's only one person you need to deal with at the top to get it to basically go in the direction you want it to. And if that person needs to be replaced because they don't do what they need to be doing, it's much easier to just replace one person and a couple of people under them than it would be to replace everybody. That's what's going on. They seem like they're going to get rid of a lot of what, unfortunately, people love about Cartoon Network. They're going to keep some of it for sure, but it's going to function as a brand in their overall umbrella of brands. So there will be Cartoon Network, but it won't necessarily be the Cartoon Network that everybody's kind of known and loved and gotten excited about. And that's a problem. I don't see that as a major plus as far as consumers go, but who knows? Maybe some great things will come out of it. They are willing to spend money when it seems like it makes sense and they're getting value for money. All right, let's get into the first article. I have a couple of different articles talking about this exact same thing, but the Cartoon Brew one seems to be the best. Cartoon Brew is a great website. It's really animation industry business. So I'll make sure I have a link to this in the description below so you can check it out more yourself. And we also have a response with Warner Brothers basically saying that, hey, Cartoon Network is not dead. But the future seems uncertain, so we'll see what their response is, basically. That's from Polygon. It's a pretty good article. Okay, right into Cartoon Brew. Before we do, please do subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up when you like it. You guys are amazing. The channel is growing. I really appreciate that. I'm going to keep as many of these videos coming as quick as I can. Cartoon Network Studios, as you know it, is gone, thanks to David Zaslav. Well, yes, it probably is his fault. But they have to manage it like a business. I mean, what are they going to do? They're running a business. They're basically going to take Cartoon Network and treat it like they would treat one of their Discovery channels. I mean, if you want to get right to the bottom, the reason that David Zaslav is in the position that he's in this kind of control, and he's on top of this multi-billion-dollar company with all these worldwide enterprises and different divisions, is because people liked his management, and his management was successful of everything else that he had prior to this merger. And then, of course, their stock is down tremendously, 50% since the merger, but that is also because 71% of the people who own the stock actually inherited it. They never actually bought it. That's another whole video. If you want to check that out, it's on my playlist. It's Why is the Stock Low? So you can check that out. All right. Warner Brothers Television Group laid off 82 scripted, unscripted, and animation employees on Tuesday and will not fill 43 more vacant positions. That's a lot of vacant positions. The 125 positions represented 26% of the company's workforce across those units. Now, a quick thing about the number 26%. That's an extremely high number. If they laid off 5%, like if you look at the sales staff, they laid off 100 out of 3,000 people in the sales staff. That's 3%. That's not a big number. Now, they've said that they're going to maybe lay off as many as 20 or 30% of the sales staff eventually, which is pretty scary, actually, if you are in the sales staff at Warner Bros. But they didn't. They laid off 3%. So 26%? I mean, they may as well just say, everyone who works here, you're literally all fired. But they didn't do that. They must want to basically keep something going. But this is a Thanos snap kind of firing. This is like 1 out of 4 people are now gone? Yes. However, the layoffs, which were generally expected, don't tell the whole story of what's going on at Warner Brothers Discovery animation units. I like how this article handled this. This is why we're doing this article. In fact, there was an even more consequential announcement yesterday that fundamentally alters the structure of Cartoon Network Studios going forward and will have a far-reaching impact on the projects that it produces. The company calls it part of its strategic realignment. This is a strategic realignment. There is a realignment going on throughout the company. If you think it's not going to hit DC Comics, that's a mistake. It is going to hit every entity. Every entity is going to be turned into this production unit entity that all feeds up to the top in a very coherent and uniform and profitable way. They are fixing everything. They're going to keep what's great about anything and what's essential about any of these units. The rest is going to go. And as I always say, they are not going to license out DC Comics. Did a whole separate video about that if you're curious. They haven't made an announcement. I'm making the announcement. In a company-wide memo, Chairman Channing Dungey told staff that the company plans to fully consolidate its TV animation divisions, merging Warner Brothers Animation and Cartoon Network Studios. Going forward, Sam Register will continue as head of WBA and CNS, as well as Hanna-Barbera Studios Europe, the latter of which will continue to operate independently from the other two. According to the memo, all three labels, all three brands, will continue to exist, but perhaps more in name than action. Both development and production at Warner Brothers, at WBA and CNS will now be merged. All the development, so all the planning of all the projects and all the actual production of all the projects will be merged in one entity, extending on the cross-studio teams that were already in place for programming, casting, legal, and business affairs and artist relations. So they already kind of had some of this working, when they say cross-studio teams, they already had some of this working. They're going to crystallize it. They're going to finalize it and finish that merger that they already had kind of going prior to Warner Media and Discovery getting together. This means that Cartoon Network Studios will no longer have any independent say, this is so important, on either creative or operational matters, something that's never happened before in its existence. Which is to say that as much as Batman does not legitimately have any authority over DC Comics, it's important too. But Batman himself will not be hiring or firing anyone or making any decisions on making any comic books, so as Cartoon Network Studios will not be making any independent decisions creatively or operationally. So that's to say Cartoon Network is a brand. It's not really a studio anymore. This also seems an ominous sign for the future of new original Cartoon Network animation. WBA has traditionally been much more a catalog IP-driven studio, while CNS has been the studio that puts out original series and specials that occasionally become touchstones for generations of viewers. So if you're expecting less creativity out of Cartoon Network, you will get what you've expected. Over the last decade, CNS produced shows such as Uncle Grandpa, Steven Universe, Clarence, Over the Garden Wall, We Bare Bears, Craig of the Creek, Summer Camp Island, Infinity Train, and Primal, to name just a few. Conversely, WA's lineup has been focused on catalog characters, including titles such as Batwheels, Bugs Bunny Builders, Aquaman King of Atlantis, Teen Titans Go, Jellystone, Animaniacs, Looney Tunes cartoons, Harley Quinn, Justice League Action, and The Tom and Jerry Show. Well, you can definitely see the difference. Those are all building on multi-decade branded content that, and this is the key, and I love this about what they're doing, but I don't like this as well, which is, I hate to love it, or I love to hate it, I don't know. They're taking stuff like, listen, if we do more with Aquaman, if we do more with the Looney Tunes cartoons, we do more with Harley Quinn, that helps build the whole world of content and the library related to those brands. If we do Aquaman King of Atlantis, it's only going to help when we do Aquaman 2, for example. Bugs Bunny, they're keeping that IP going for, additional decades. So if they're spending money on producing this content, not only does this content satisfy the subscribers to the channels that this content is going to be published on, but it also builds their other brands, and it helps theatrical versions of Aquaman or whatever else that they're doing. You kind of get the idea. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That's a very big deal to Warner Bros. Discovery for them to build their global intellectual property, and especially build things where if they've got Aquaman, King of Atlantis, you know, can they sell it in multiple markets internationally? You know, can they do that with Infinity Train? You know, and they're not doing Infinity Train anymore, but not the same way, if you kind of get the point. But Infinity Train, you know, in and of itself, for example, any one of these single properties could be its own great little property, but that's the decision they have to make. How much do they want to invest in new things to continue to build intellectual property, or do like no risk things? And certainly they should be doing probably 80% no risk and 20% original. And let me know what you think of that in the comments below. Underboss David Zaslav, Warner Bros. Discovery, has expressed a desire to focus more heavily on IP across all its businesses. So now that CNS has had to share development and production resources with WBA, it's difficult to imagine a future in which the studio's original animation output can match what it's been in the past. As long as Zaslav is king, is he king? I guess so. Cartoon Network Studios is likely to shift more strongly towards reboots of its existing catalog, and it's currently doing with the Powerpuff Girls, than launching new intellectual property. The significance of yesterday's news may not have fully sunk in for a lot of animation fans, but those in the business immediately understood the magnitude of the news and its impact on Cartoon Network Studios, and by extension, Cartoon Network's future. Brian Miller, former general manager of Cartoon Network Studios and a key figurehead at the company for 21 years, tweeted a quote from the Variety report and a grim two-word summary of what he thinks it means for the future of Cartoon Network Studios. R.I.P. CNS. That's sad, but in terms of what he thinks of as Cartoon Network, he's right. Under the new setup, kids and family series development at both WBA and CNS will be led by Audra Deal, adult animation development by Peter Giraldi, and animated long-form series development by Sammy Perlmutter, with Bobby Page leading main production. Ed Adams will continue as executive vice president and general manager. They're expecting you to get a lot done, Ed Adams. You'd better do that. All right, let me know what you think of this. This is essentially what the response to it is. This is coming from Polygon. Cartoon Network is not dead, says Warner Brothers, but its future is uncertain. Warner Brothers Animation and Cartoon Network Studios will be brought under one division, but brands will stay distinct. So they're going to keep the Cartoon Network brand. How are they going to do that? They have to produce content that's Cartoon Network-ish to be able to maintain that brand. It can't be that they take Cartoon Network and they start doing, you know, stuff that belongs in Warner Brothers Animation. So we'll see what that means. On Wednesday, Warner Brothers TV Group laid off 82 staffers across scripted, unscripted, and animation divisions. We certainly know that already. According to Deadline, and this is true, this is the whole diversity uproar over the Warner Brothers Television Workshop. Warner Brothers also, well, it's interesting. That's a whole additional story. Warner Brothers Discovery is going to incorporate the Pipeline Workshop, which is now turned into the Diversity Pipeline Workshop. That is what they said they're doing. They're putting it under the DEI initiative at the corporate level, and actually the budget for it is being taken out of Warner Brothers Television and put under their corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion budget, which means it's going to be a lot less. And what they do with that budget is also interesting. I'm going to do another video just on this whole diversity battle, basically, inside and outside Warner Brothers Discovery. Here we go. These changes to Cartoon Network Studios come at a time when some of its cartoons have already become harder to track down and watch. The cuts also arrive on the heels of Discovery's acquisition of Warner Media from AT&T, of course. Let's see. Zaslav has made good on the promise. Yeah, they have been laying off a lot of people and making a lot of moves. But what is this going to ultimately mean? So they're saying that they're going to continue it. They're just not going to run it as if it's its own independent business, essentially. So there's not going to be a lot of authority, as we said, vested separately with the Cartoon Network brand. Just the same way Batman is very important, he has no authority. The other thing that's very much the way that Zaslav does business, love it or hate it. But I caught this. This is another article. This one's coming from The Verge about one about Discovery basically killing the Cartoon Network. They are, I would say it's fair to say they're killing it as, a standalone business. They're not killing the brand. They like the brand. They like that people care about the brand. They have a lot of people, because I see it in comments like completely unrelated to the subject of my comments even. People are mad. And they know that, and I get it. But you're going to see a lot less new, innovative, particularly diverse things. It's just not going to come out of the Cartoon Network studios, realistically. But one of the things that is very Zaslav is they will cut the number of new episodes of even things they're continuing. So earlier this month, Cartoon Network's Craig of the Creek and its spinoff Jessica Big Little World had their season episode orders cut by 50%. While both shows and the upcoming Craig of the Creek movie are still happening, the way they're being pared back, despite being part of one of Cartoon Network's most successful current franchises, feels reflective of things to come. It should. And that's the best thing about this article. This article did a good job of pointing that out. Zaslav, and I've heard this in a number of his interviews, is extremely aware of what they think it takes to be able to keep someone subscribed to a channel. So if your channel's the food channel, if your channel is a travel channel, he's aware of how much new content they need to produce to keep that fan interested and to keep that fan going back to the channel. So where it may be normal with a successful show to do, say, 12 episodes, I'm just picking a wild number. If he feels, and his team assesses stuff like this, feels they can get by with doing 8 or doing 6, and they're going to keep that person's interest, and they're going to keep going back to the channel, that's what they're going to do. They have no qualms about cutting. There was an interview, he was talking about doing this on it was the Food Channel. They were talking about producing an additional 300 hours a month of content rather than 400, because it just wasn't necessary to keep the subscribers to produce the 400. Maybe it's because they felt people didn't have the time to watch all of the new content, but that's a quarter of the money. It's interesting to compare that cutback with this 50% cutback on these two hit titles from Cartoon Network, because it just shows that he has even less respect, to be honest, for the way that they've been running the Cartoon Network production planning and channel. I only know this because I've studied, quite so much of what Zaslav has been doing ever since they announced they were going to do the merger. It's just fascinating to see how entertainment is changing. I don't count this as a big plus. I think this is a bad thing. To have less cartoons, to have less content, it's a bad thing. But I can't blame them for making a business decision. They do the numbers. Numbers don't lie. You're stuck with the numbers. Now, if people stop watching their channels and stop, having interest in Cartoon Network, then maybe they'll make a change. But otherwise, I would expect a lot less new from Cartoon Network. And the stuff that's a hit, I think they're going to have smaller season orders. If it's a monster hit, then the IP will develop into spin off its own movies or other content. It's just going to be that, but it's going to have to deliver. It can't just be cute or quirky. It's going to have to actually get really interested, passionate fans who express their interest and who are, diehard lovers of whatever that content is. Because if it's not, they're not going to produce more of it. That's just how they do all of their brands. It's always been that way. All right. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. And if you're angry about them cutting these cartoons, let me know. If there's things that I left out that you think I should have known or should speak on, definitely please add that to the comments below. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, suggest any ideas for videos. I get that sometimes. It's great. You can get me at @ComicsWeLove on Twitter. Also in the description below, my contact is there. All right, I will see you again soon with another video, and if I don't see you, I will miss you.